Welcome to Congregation Beth Yeshurun. This beautiful Shabbat evening in cool and breezy Houston, Texas. We're going to begin our service this evening with a nigun.
Andai dai 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 andai dai 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 andai dai 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 ada dai ada dai andai dai 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 andai dai 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 andai dai 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 ada dai ada dai andai dai 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 ada dai ada dai andai dai 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 da 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 da.
Now please rise as we bless the Shabbat candles.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kideshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu le'ad likner v'tzivanu le'ad likner v'tzivanu le'ad likner shel Shabbat.
You may be seated. And now we sing Shalom Aleichem, welcoming the Sabbath angels. Page 5.
Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Asharet, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem leShalom, Malachei Ashalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Barchuni leShalom, Malachei Ashalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tzichem leShalom, Malachei Ashalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
Lechu Niranana Ladonai. Let's go and sing to God. Page 11.
Lechu Niranana, Lechu Niranana, Lechu Niranana Ladonai. Lechu Niranana, Lechu Niranana, Lechu Niranana Ladonai. Naria, Naria, Letzur Yishenu, Nekadma תודה. נריע לצור ישנו, בזמירות נריע לו. לכו נרננה, לכו נרננה, לכו נרננה לאדוני. לכו נרננה, לכו נרננה, לכו נרננה לאדוני.
Yismechu Hashemayim, let the heavens rejoice, page 14.
ישמחו השמיים, ישמחו השמיים, ישמחו השמיים, ותגל הארץ. ישמחו השמיים, ישמחו השמיים, ישמחו השמיים, ותגל הארץ. ירמיהו, ירמיהו, ירמיהו ומלוא. ירמיהו, ירמיהו, ירמיהו ומלוא. ישמחו השמיים, ישמחו השמיים, ישמחו השמיים, ותגל הארץ. ירמיהו, ירמיהו, ירמיהו ומלוא. ירמיהו, ירמיהו, ירמיהו ומלוא.
Now that we've brought in the angels and we've welcomed the Sabbath with the candles, we welcome the bride herself, the Shabbat bride, Lecha Dodi, page 23.
לך דודי לקראת כלה, בני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, בני שבת נקבלה. שמור וזכור בדיבורך, נשמיענו אל המיוחד. אדוני אחד ושמו אחד, לשם ולתפארת, ולתהילה, ולתהילה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, בני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, בני שבת נקבלה. לקראת שבת לכו ונלכה, כי מקור הברכה. מראש מגדל נסוכה, סוף מעשה במחשבה תפילה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, בני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, בני שבת נקבלה. בואי ושלום עטרת בעלה, גם בשמחה ובצולה, תוך אמוני עד סגולה. בואי חלה, בואי חלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, בני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, בני שבת נקבלה.
You may be seated. Now we sing a part of Psalm 92, the psalm for the Sabbath day, Tov Lehodot Ladonai, page 27 at the top.
טוב, טוב, טוב להודות, טוב להודות לאדוני, ולזמר, ולזמר, ולזמר לשמך עליון. טוב, טוב, טוב להודות, טוב להודות לאדוני, ולזמר, ולזמר, ולזמר לשמך נזמר לשמך עליון. טוב, טוב להודות לאדוני.
Into our congregation now, we welcome those who are mourning. And to those who are mourning, we offer the words of comfort from our tradition, Hamakom Yenachem Etchem B'toch Shar Avlei Tzion V'Yerushalayim. May God's presence bring you comfort amongst the mourners of Zion and Jerusalem. Those who are mourning and those observing a yard site will recite the Mourner's Kaddish on page 30. Yit Gadal V'Yit Kadash Shemei Rabbah.
Amen.
V'Alma Divrach Hirutei V'Yamlich Malchutei. V'Chayechon U'Vyamechon U'V'Chayei Dechol Beit Yisrael. Ba'agala Uvizman Kariv V'Yimru Amen. Yehi Shmei Rabbah Mevarach Le'olam Le'almei Maya. Yitbarach V'Yishtabach V'Yitpa'ar V'Yitromam V'Yitnaseh V'Yitadar V'Yitaleh V'Yitalal Shemei Dekudsha Berechu. Le'elah Min Kol Berchata V'Shirata Tush Bechata V'Nechemata Da'amiran V'Alma V'Yimru Amen. Yehi Shlama Rabba Min Shemaya V'Chayim Aleinu V'Al Kol Yisrael V'Yimru Amen. Hosei Shalom B'Ramav Hu Ya'aseh Shalom Aleinu V'Al Kol Yisrael V'Yimru Amen.
Amen.
We now ask everyone to rise for Baruch, page 39.
Baruch hu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam va'ed.
We could be seated. We continue with Ahavat Olam, page 40.
אהבת עולם, בית ישראל, בית ישראל, עמך אהבת, תורה ומצוות, חוקים ומשפטים, חוקים ומשפטים, אותנו לימדת, על כן אדוני אלוהינו, בשוכבנו ושוכבנו קומנו, נשיח, נשיח, נשיח בחוקיך, אהבת עולם, בית ישראל, בית ישראל, עמך אהבת, תורה ומצוות, חוקים ומשפטים, חוקים ומשפטים, אותנו לימדת, ונשמח לדברי תורתך ובמצוותיך לעולם ועד, כי הם חיינו ואורך ימינו, ובהם נגע יומם ולילה, ואהבתך, ואהבתך, אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים. ברוך אתה, אדוני, אוהב עמו, עמו ישראל.
41, Shema.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבבך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך וקשרתם להיות על ידיך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך.
We continue silently in Hebrew or English to the bottom of page 42.
Adonai Elohechem, amen.
Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, who is like you, Adonai, among the mighty, who is like you, adorned in holiness. Mi chamocha, page 44.
Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi chamocha nehtar b'kodesh nora nora, nora tehilot osef eleh. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi chamocha nehtar b'kodesh nora nora, nora tehilot osef eleh. מלכותך רעובניך, בוקי הים לפני משה. זה לי, עלו ויאמרו. מלכותך רעובניך, בוקי הים לפני משה. זה לי, עלו ויאמרו. מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נהדר בקודש נורא נורא, נורא תהילות אוסף אלך. מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נהדר בקודש נורא נורא, נורא תהילות אוסף אלך. אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נהדר בקודש נורא נורא, נורא תהילות אוסף אלך, אוסף אלך, אוסף אלך.
Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom. Help us, O God, to lie down in peace tonight and awaken us again to life renewed in the morning. Page 45.
השכיבנו אדוני אלוהינו לשלום והעמידנו מלכנו לחיים. השכיבנו אדוני אלוהינו לשלום והעמידנו מלכנו לחיים. Adonai Eloheinu leshalom V'hamiteinu malkeinu
Vishamru v'nei Yisrael et Shabbat. The children of Israel will keep the Sabbath day as a sign of our covenant with God. Vishamru, page 46.
ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ולעולם ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ולעולם ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ולעולם כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ולעולם וביום השביעי שבת וינפש שבת וינפש שבת וינפש ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ולעולם.
Please rise for Chatzi Kaddish.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה בעלמא יברח יירותי וימליך מלכותי וחי נכון וביום נכון ובחי לך בית ישראל והגלה בזמן קריב ויאמרו אמן והגלה בזמן קריב ויאמרו אמן יהי שמי רבה מברך לעולם יום ויומיה יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי לקודשה בריחו לילה מכל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה תאמירן בעלמא ויאמרו אמן ויאמרו אמן ויאמרו אמן.
And now it's time for our private audience with God, the silent Amidah, pages 47 to 52 in Hebrew or English. We turn to the prayer book, page 51, Shalom Rav.
Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Ki ata melech adon lechol hashalom. Ki ata melech adon lechol hashalom. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. V'tov einecha levarech et amcha Yisrael bechol עת ובכל שעה בשומרך. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Baruch atah Adonai HaMevarech et amo Yisrael b'shalom. And now we turn to page 52 for Oseh Shalom. And I ask you to put your arm around the person next to you. I invite you to put your arm around the person next to you as we say a prayer for peace. Oseh Shalom, Oseh Shalom Mimromav, Hu Yaseh Shalom Aleinu. Shalom Aleinu, Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'yimru Amen. Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'yimru Amen. Hu yaseh shalom aleinu, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Hu yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Oseh shalom, Oseh shalom bimromav. Hu yaseh shalom aleinu, shalom aleinu, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'yimru Amen. Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'yimru Amen. Amen. Amen.
And now that we've had some prayers for peace, we pray for healing and strength for those who are in special need, but body, soul, mind, or spirit. Misha Berach on the inside back cover of our prayer books.
Shabbat
God grant blessing to all those in our hearts who need a special prayer for healing. To this may we say, Amen. We may be seated, and we continue with Kaddish Shalem, page 54.
יתגדל ויקדש שמי רבה, אל מה דברה חירותי וימליך מלכותי, וחייכון וימכון וחיי לכל בית ישראל, הגלה בזמן קריב וימרו, אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך, לעולם ועולמי עלמיה. יתברך וישתבח ויפאר ותאמר ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל, שמי דקות שבריחו, לעילא מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, דמירן ועלמה וימרו, אמן. תקבל סרטון ועלטון לכל ישראל, קדם אבון די בשמיה, וימרו, אמן. יהי שלמה רבה משמיה, וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל, וימרו, אמן. עושה שלום ממרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל, וימרו, אמן.
Shabbat Shalom. As most of you know by now, I grew up in a Reformed Jewish home. My parents were members of the Reformed Temple in Tucson, Arizona. Both of my parents taught in the Sunday school for many years. My mother was also the temple librarian. My father went to services regularly on Friday nights and even Saturdays, which was a big deal in the Reform movement. And my mother often went with him as well, and my brother and I frequently went with them. My dad led a Torah study group at the temple for decades. Each week, a small group of adults sat around the table at the synagogue, much like Rabbi Horowitz does here at the after chapel services, and together they would read the portion with the Reform Chumash commentary. Long after my brother and I had left Tucson, he continued that study group for decades. While we were growing up, every Friday night, my father recited the Shabbat Kiddush over a cup of wine. If you saw my Shabbat Shalom video this week, you saw this Kiddush card, which he used every Friday night in our home to recite the blessings over the wine. When my brother and I cleaned out our parents' home in Tucson, I made sure to look for this and find it and bring it back to Houston with me. Obviously, it left a deep impression on me when I was a kid. On the cover of it, it says, Kiddush LeShabbat, sanctification of the Sabbath, Sabbath Eve for services for the home. And then on the inside, it has some blessings. But in typical fashion of the Reform movement of the time, there are only 3 lines that are in Hebrew. The blessing for the candles, the blessing for the wine, and the blessing over the bread. The rest is in English, and although it's supposed to be a translation of the blessings, the Hebrew blessings, it's not even close, but that's okay. Kind of captured the spirit of Shabbat in them. Yeah, that's right. My father wanted to do the full Kiddush paragraph, and since there was only 1 line in the Hebrew here, he hand wrote on the back side, which you can't really tell from your seats, in a very nice script with vowels, the entire paragraph for the Kiddush, and so that he could recite the entire thing every Friday night. The weekly Kiddush at our dining table is a memory that obviously stuck with me. When I was 11 or 12 years old, my parents sent me to a summer camp at the nearest Reform Jewish camp, Camp Swig in Saratoga, California. There I experienced the beauty of Shabbat as all of us dressed in white and gathered together as the sun set to sing the Kabbalat Shabbat service and other songs and have a delicious Shabbat dinner and enjoy the sparkling, fresh atmosphere of camp in the forests of North California. My parents collected books, thousands of books, especially Jewish books, the Chumash, the 5 books of Moses, of course, textbooks that were used in the temple religious school that covered Jewish history, Jewish holidays, Jewish customs, prayer books, storybooks, Jewish novels, reference books, and many others. But perhaps most importantly, my parents, and particularly my father, would actually take the books off the shelves and read them once in a while. When people ask me how I came to be a conservative rabbi, I often try to cut the story short by starting with my first experience in Israel after I graduated college. Or if their eyes have not glazed over yet, I might give them a longer version, and I would tell them about how I was active in Hillel when I was in college. But the truth is that my journey really started at home when I was very young. My parents were committed Jews, and they provided a Jewish environment for me at home as well as in the synagogue and summer camp. As an adult now, I feel blessed that my parents did that. They were not wealthy people. My father was a high school counselor earning basically a teacher's salary. My mother stayed at home to raise my brothers and me, working only part-time after we got older. Our house was not large nor luxurious. Our car was 10 years old. But my parents made our Jewish identity a priority. And so here I am today, a conservative rabbi. Our parents are the first role models, and they have a powerful impact on our identities and our personalities. Of course, each one of us has free will and will ultimately grow and change and become who we want to be. But our parents lay a foundation that often, but not always, stays with us for the rest of our lives. There's a dramatic tension between being a parent. On the one hand, we want to guide our children, to protect them from harm, to teach them to be good, to be kind, to have good values, which of course means our values. We want them to be like us in many ways, but we also want them to be independent, to be able to make their own decisions, to be able to deal with the consequences of those decisions on their own. We want them to have the inner strength to pursue their dreams, to find successful employment so they can provide for themselves and their families when they grow up. And this tension in being a parent is mirrored in the tension our children experience as they grow up into teenagers and ultimately independent adults. In some ways, our children want to be loved and respected by their parents. They want to imitate us in some ways, but they also want and need to differentiate themselves from us. They are, after all, not us. They are who they are, a separate human being with a separate personality, unique interests, divergent abilities. And as painful as it is sometimes for us parents to accept, we have to recognize that part of life is letting go, letting our children find out who they are for themselves, because we cannot protect them from the real world forever. It's interesting that this tension is also reflected in Jewish traditions about our ancestor Abraham. We often think of Abraham's life as starting out with God's command to him, Lech lecha, get out of here. Get out of your father's home and go to a place that you've never seen before. Leave behind everything you have ever known in your life and trust me. I'm going to make you into a great nation and give you and your offspring a wonderful land. Just believe me. In fact, the rabbis asked themselves, why did God pick Abraham? After all, we really know practically nothing about him at this point in the story. They answered the question themselves with a story that we're familiar with. Abraham's father was an idol maker. His father was not just part of the idol-worshiping society that covered the entire Near East. His father was one of the major causes or leaders of this religion. And one day, Abraham realized that these objects of stone and wood that his father made were not really gods. Abraham realized there was only one God, the creator of the universe. And Abraham developed a relationship with this one God and literally smashed his father's idols. And that's when God said to Abraham, you better get out of town. That's a wonderful story. And in this story, Abraham seems to be a child, or we might say an adolescent or a teenager. He's living in his father's home. He's rebellious. And the idea that Abraham smashes his father's idols is a brilliant metaphor that describes exactly what teenagers do. When our children reach a certain age, they begin to question authority, our authority. They question our assumptions, our values, and our dearly held beliefs. Abraham's father was part of the idolatrous world where they lived in. Everyone believed in many gods who fought with each other, creating chaos on earth for human beings. And in this chaotic world, the only way a human being could survive was to get control of one of these gods to protect him in his life. And then Abraham questioned these pagan assumptions and came to a radical conclusion that there are not many gods, but only one, that the world is not chaotic, but rational and predictable, following the rules the Creator had established. He literally and figuratively smashed his father's idols, not just the stone shapes themselves, but the assumptions of the value system they represented. He broke through the dearly held beliefs of his time, uprooted from his thinking, and set out to start on a new way, a new adventure, to understand the universe and humanity's role in it. Of course, we all truly believe our own values, assumptions, and traditions, so it's quite painful at times for us when our teenagers challenge them all the time. But that is part of the process of growing up. And at least I'm told this stage eventually does pass. Still waiting. A few more years and our children will suddenly realize that we're not as dumb as they thought we were. But some of our beliefs and values may not be so reliable, justifiable, reasonable, or even morally appropriate. And that's how society progresses. Whether or not our beliefs are right or wrong, however, it's not a bad exercise for our children to question them. It forces us to re-examine these beliefs and justify them, not only to our children, but to ourselves. We too often accept as facts things that we should continue to question, to re-examine and reinterpret. And so this story our sages tell us about Abraham smashing his father's idols is a very useful model that is relevant for parents and children today. But the Bible itself doesn't tell that story. In fact, we do know a little bit about Abraham's early life directly from the Torah, if only in a sentence or two. And those two sentences tell a very different story. Just before God tells Abraham to take a hike, so to speak, it says that Abraham's father, Terah, took his son Abram, his grandson Lot, his daughter-in-law Sarai, and they set out together from Ur of the Chaldees for the land of Canaan. But when they had come as far as Haran, which is just a little north of Canaan, it's in Syria, they settled there. What these verses tell us is that Abraham did not start out on his life journey leaving his father's home. His father actually started the family journey. Together, they left the powerful city-state of Ur, which was in modern-day Iraq. Ur was one of the dominant city-states in the area and the foremost center of culture during that time. What caused them to leave is not stated. But the point is that Abraham's father, Terah, had already intended to take the family to Canaan. That's modern-day Israel. But for some reason, he stopped short of the goal. And only then, when Abraham was considerably older than a teenager, did God ask Abraham to finish the journey his father had begun. The land God gave to Abraham is the land of Canaan, where his father had intended to live in the first place. Perhaps then we can speculate on a different story. Perhaps Terah himself was dissatisfied with life in pagan city of Ur and had been inspired by God himself to make this journey to Canaan. He realized that in order to explore this new idea of monotheism, he had to escape the powerful culture of Babylon. But for whatever reason, he was not able to finish the job. And so God turned to Abraham and said, "You must now fulfill this mission. You must take over where your father left off. Go now, leave your father's home, and come to Canaan, where I will make you the ancestor of the Jewish people." The Bible then gives us an entirely different, but equally useful and important paradigm to understand God's command to Abraham. He was not smashing his father's idols, but fulfilling his father's dreams. He was completing the journey his father was unable to finish for whatever reason. And this, too, is a useful paradigm for today's parents and children. We, too, know many people, maybe ourselves, who have chosen to follow in our parents' footsteps, to pursue their dreams and visions, and to bring them to fruition. Which interpretation is correct? The beauty of Judaism, of course, is that we say Elu ve'elu. Both these and those are the words of the living God. Both interpretations have a spark of divine wisdom in them. Both teach us something valuable about life as we know it and live it. We cannot ultimately dictate to our children what they should believe, what values they should embrace, or how they should live their lives. But we can give them a foundation while they're very young, and then hope and pray that they take that foundation and build on it to make the best lives for themselves. To the extent that we demonstrate our own commitment to Jewish living and learning, hopefully that will become part of their values as our children, and they will take them when they leave our homes. I like to think that I am mostly like the Abraham described in the Torah, the one who takes his father's vision to the next step. My father was a devoted Reform Jew. I became a conservative rabbi. But I also think in some ways I'm also a little rebellious like the Abraham of the rabbi's story. And I'll save that for another sermon. By the way, for those of you who are thinking, I don't want my child to become a rabbi, what kind of job is that for a nice Jewish boy or girl? Don't worry, my brother is an engineer. Shabbat shalom. Now I want to say a special prayer for all the fathers out there who are watching and all the fathers here, a prayer that usually the fathers recite to their children. We know it really well, the priestly blessing. Yevarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha, may the Holy One bless you and watch over you. Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'kunecha, may God's light shine upon you and be gracious to you. Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom, may God always be mindful of you and grant you peace and happiness, now and always. And now, as we've done in the last couple of weeks, Neil has a special song for us.
Tumble and fall, all the mountains should crumble to the sea. I won't cry, no, I won't cry, no, I won't shed a tear, just as long as you stand by me. So Father's Day.
You can stand by me anytime.
I will.
And please rise now as we open the Ark for Aleinu on page 56. There you go.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא, שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוסר הארץ, ומושב וקרוב השמיים ממעל, ושכינתו זו בגובה מרומים. הוא אלוהינו אין עוד, אמת מלכנו אפס זולתו, ככתוב בתורתו, ודעת היום והשבות אל לבבך, כי אדוני הוא האלוהים בשמיים ממעל, ועל הארץ מתחת אין עוד. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו
You may be seated. For those who are mourning and those observing a yard site, we'll now recite the Mourner's Kaddish, which is found on page 58. And this evening, Beth Yeshurun extends its condolences to the family of Yolanda Dauber, Michael Goodman, Evelyn Pauli Roth, and Rich Stocker, who were taken from us in the past few days and weeks. Mourner's Kaddish, page 58. Yit Gadal v'yit Kadash Shemei Rabbah B'yalma Divrach Yerutei v'yamlich Malchutei B'chayechon u'v'yamechon u'v'chayei d'chol Beit Yisrael Ba'agalau v'zman kariv v'yemru Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbah Mevarach Le'olam Le'omei Omayam. Yit Barach v'yishtabach v'yit Pa'ar v'yit Romam v'yit Nasei v'yit Adar v'yit Alei v'yit Alal Shemei d'Kudsha B'reichu Leila min kol birchata v'shirata, tush bechata v'nechemata, da'amiron bi'alma v'yemru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yemru amen. Osei shalom b'mramav, hu ya'asei shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yemru amen. And every Friday night, we also like to acknowledge anniversaries that are occurring in this week or the next week. And so as I call your name, please stand so we can give you a Yasher Koach and a Mazel Tov. We have quite a few people who are celebrating anniversaries. It's June. June brides is really a thing. Actually, one of my teachers, Rabbi Golinkin, explained that may go back to pagan times when nobody got married in May, so they put off getting married till June. In any case, here we have a bunch of anniversaries. So as I call your name, please stand. We'll give you congratulations. Mindy and Miles Wertheimer, celebrating 32 years. Over the last year, your marriage has become even closer as you are both working remotely from the home. That sounds familiar. And you get to see each other for breakfast, lunch, and dinner every day. You are blessed that you have stayed in good health during the pandemic and were able to enjoy a wonderful trip with your 3 children, Jackie, Holly, and Matt, to the Grand Canyon in Sedona. Beautiful place, my home state. You're looking forward to celebrating numerous life cycle events in the next few months with the family in California, Chicago, and New York. Mazel tov. Mazel tov. 32. And Bruce and Rona Caress, you're celebrating 35 years. And this year, your granddaughter, Haley, is graduating the University of Colorado Boulder. Mazel tov. So you have a lot to celebrate, which is wonderful. I hope you're going to celebrate tonight. Yes? Okay. Mazel tov. Toby and Richard Newman are celebrating 55 years. You have been blessed with good health this past year, and you've been able to travel to see friends and family, including attending a niece's wedding, and most recently have celebrated your oldest grandson's high school graduation. And Mark couldn't be here tonight, as you know, but he is watching at home, and he wishes you a Yasher Koach and Mazel Tov, and I'm sure he has something special planned for you, and if he doesn't, he's going to have it now. So, Mazel Tov. Celebrating 61 years, Rena and Harvey Zeidel. You are grateful for your good health and excited to spend time with your children and grandchildren in Baton Rouge, far enough but not too far, to celebrate your anniversary, Harvey's birthday, and July 4th, all at once. Mazel tov. And then Bela and Marvin Abrams celebrating 62 years. They're not here in person, but they're watching at home. They feel blessed to currently have family visiting, which brings Marvin a lot of joy. In general, they are grateful to be surrounded by good family and friends. We wish you a mazel tov long distance. All right, we have 265 years, so I guess we're doing it in alphabetical order. Toby and Mort Joachim celebrating 65 years. "65 years. You are so grateful that you have a loving and caring family. 3 wonderful children, Jeffrey, Karen, and Linda. 7 fantastic grandchildren, David, Joshua, and Adam Finkelman, Brooke and Sean Cantor, Jason and Jeremy Joachim, and a bonus from David and Joshua with 5 Finkelman great-grandchildren, and from Jason with 2 Joachim great-grandchildren. Mazel tov, 65 years. You don't even look 65 years old. Okay, and then Burton Reva Reckles, also celebrating 65 years. You also don't look 65 years old. This year, you were blessed with a great-grandson, which you happily added to the family with your great-granddaughter, who made her appearance 2 years ago. Your cup truly runneth over. Mazel tov, and by the way, I still remember time in a bottle. For those who don't know, Bert puts ships in bottles. He made me time in a bottle. Mazel tov. And finally, the winner for the evening, Marcia and Irving Wishnow, celebrating 70 years. That's 7-0. This past year, the good thing that happened was your granddaughter became a registered nurse working at Texas Children's Hospital, and your grandson became engaged. Mazel tov, you have a lot to celebrate. We're so delighted that you're here to celebrate with us. Okay, we had a lot of anniversaries here, which is great. So I'm going to kind of race through some announcements really quickly. Following our services, the oneg will be in the fine atrium outside, just in the hallway there. Please help us spread the word that the religious school is looking for teachers still for pre-K through 7th grade. If you know somebody who would like to teach in our religious school, contact Cheryl or the office, and we'll put you in touch with Cheryl Eskowitz. Next Shabbat, we'll join together with Keshet Houston to celebrate Pride Shabbat. Brit Shalom is going to be celebrating with us here, and other rabbis and congregants from other places may come as well. If you would like to join for the dinner afterwards, there's a $10 charge. You can register for it on our following the link from our website, or with Keshet Houston directly. We have some social action opportunities this summer. Kids Meals Houston, a 2022 Summer Juice Box Challenge. The details for these things are found on our website under Volunteer Opportunities. Lots of things to do, including some work with Search, the homeless services shelter. And finally, if you have a friend or a family member who's in the hospital or having nursing care, please let our clergy know. We'd like to be able to visit them, but because of HIPAA rules, as you know, we don't know about it unless you tell us. The hospitals don't tell us, so you have to let us know, and we can then go and visit your relatives or friends. So that's all the announcements for this evening. And now we're going to bless our children here, children watching at home. For the girls, we're going to say, Yisimech Elohim Kasara Rivka Rachel Valeah. May God make you like Sarah, Becca, Rachel, and Leah. For the boys, we're going to say, Yisimcha Elohim Kefraim V'Chemenashe. May God make you like Ephraim and Menashe. For all our children, we say, Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha. May the Holy One bless you and watch over you. Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'yichuneka. May God's light shine upon you and be gracious to you. Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. May God always be mindful of you and grant you peace and happiness, now and always. And now, please rise as as Neil sings the Kiddush.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai
Baruch Shemo.
Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu Shabbat Kodsho be'ava uvratzon inchilanu zikaron le'masei v'reishit ki hu yom techila le'mikraei kodesh zeicher le'tzion Mitzrayim kivanu מכל העמים בשבת קודשך באהבה וברצון הנחלתנו ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת
Amen. L'chaim, Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat 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 Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat 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 Shalom, Shabbat 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 Shalom, Shabbat 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 Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shalom. Shabbat, Shalom. Shabbat, Shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shalom. Shabbat, Shalom, everyone.